Hello, you're welcome to the Magnate. Today we shall focus on waste management, or should we say, turning our waste to wealth. We have somebody whose name is synonymous with that, at least in Lagos State, and has also added value in the entire nation and even globally. A background report will tell you who our Magnate for the week is. We'll come back to have an interactive section with him. We'll be back shortly.
Mr. Ola Oresanya, a notable Nigerian and a recognized authority in waste management and environmental development in Nigeria and Africa at large. He is well-read academically with various qualifications from local to international diplomas and first degree, BSc and Masters respectively, from the University of Ibadan in geology. Also, he is there to acquire PhD degree in environmental management and ecology from Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, PhD in view. A former student of Harvard University, Massachusetts, USA, and of Liverpool Polytechnic, UK. Is still a part-time lecturer in waste management and toxicology, University of Agriculture, Abeokuta. His contributions in service, locally and internationally, cannot be overemphasized, as he added value in different capacities to the development of Nigeria environment. Known for his numerous awards locally and internationally, with several honorary degrees for his work in sustainable waste and environmental management, has chosen to extend his wealth of knowledge, as he had published a lot of books on his field and has presented over 500 professional papers on waste management issues, locally and internationally, respectively.
This is the Magnate, and you're welcome back. I'm sure we have whetted your appetite with the background reports. We have given you a profile documentary of our Magnate for the week, and it's my pleasure. I'm really delighted to be a guest in his office. Permit me to welcome to the Magnate, Mr. or very soon to become Dr. Oladimeji Oresanya. You're welcome to the Magnate, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having us, even at a very short notice. Okay. You're our friend.
Thank you.
Okay, so you heard my intro, sir. Without, beating about the bush, or let's go straight to what brought us here. Waste management. Can we really manage waste? Because this is something, refuse, the other name for it, that you dispose. Tell us, what is it about waste management?
Waste management is, you can relate it to managing even your life and your lifestyle. It's a component of the kind of mandate, let me put that word, the divine mandate given to man by God. Because when you look at it, when God created man, he gave us a mandate to make sure that we sustain life. And life sustenance is all about managing the kind of the byproduct of your daily activities.
Good. Because
this byproduct of your daily existence or your activities, if you don't take care of it, it will take care of you. And that can be fatal. If you don't take care of waste, it will take care of you. So man was created to manage the byproduct of his own existence. And that is what we call the waste. Okay. All right. But in effect itself, the skill over time has shown us that what you call waste is a relative word. There is nothing in its absolute sense called waste. It's used, it's just a relative word to describe what you discarded that moves from point A to point B. The point A is where it's not needed. The point B is where it's discarded, where it's going to be buried, disposed, or reused for other things. Okay. So is that act of making sure that you discard responsibly, you transport appropriately, and you treat in an environmentally sound
friendly manner. Okay, we can't even talk about, the background report we've had of you says you are presently the consultant, environmental consultant with Globetech, Nigeria Limited. Let's even take it from a holistic point of view. The environment, the ecosystem. Aren't we harming ourselves with the advent of high rate of pollution? We shouldn't be at all. How can we, let's take it from the air we breathe. How do we harm ourselves with the polluted environment that we live in? Still talking about the waste, sir.
Yeah, just like I said, you see, our daily existence For example, you mentioned about the ecosystem. God created everything. God created life, and God created everything that will make life to be sustainable. Our reproductive system is a sustainable one. Our daily existence, for example, we breathe in oxygen. We give out carbon dioxide. Because carbon dioxide is a product, the processed oxygen, the human metabolism. We use the oxygen to give our blood life, to help us digest the food we ingest, to give us breath. Now, that mechanism, that process, the central processing unit in man, will give out the byproduct, which is the carbon dioxide. And that carbon dioxide is what the plant would take, recycle the carbon dioxide. If you want to call the photosynthesis as a recycling process by nature, recycle the carbon dioxide and give us back the oxygen so that it can continue. And that is what keeps life going. That's a symbiotic relationship. The same thing with the paper that you use in wrapping food so that you can eat. After eating, you have to dispose of that paper. And that paper, there must be a system that will make sure that that waste you are discarding now, we create a new life that you can use again. So God has shown us what nature should be. There's an eco-balance. The ecosystem is balanced. And likewise, man was given brain to make sure that your activity, you make it in such a manner that it will be sustainable. That is why when you discard off your paper, there's an inherent sense in you that tells you that, look, what can I use this paper for again? That's when you know, oh, I can shred it, I can turn it into pulp, I can wet it, and I can turn it into tissue paper. I can turn it into writing material. It can go on and on, because science tells you that matter cannot be created nor destroyed. So the same thing. The material you have discarded, it cannot be destroyed. It's going somewhere else to metamorphose into something
else. In fact, that's the crux of the matter, sir.
Right.
You know, when you served at Loma, I mean, that's where you were really known and you added value to so many things. There is this issue of habits. You know, you talked copiously about disposal of what we really don't need, that we even eventually come back to us needed. What do you think, or how can you counsel people on the disposal of refuse? You did quite a lot by sensitizing people on different method of disposal so that they can be reused. How do you counsel people on habits, on how best to dispose, materials not needed, that is?
Well, I think maybe in the time past, yes, I probably would have agreed that habit of the people is a key issue. But I think over the years of my exposure, and I think wisdom has taught me that it's not the people. It's all about the structure that determines how people function.
Good.
There are structures that determines how we function. And I think the structure of governance is a measure of values. And your measure of value is what determines your culture or your habit. So if I don't want people to litter the streets,
provision have to be made.
There must be a structure that makes sure that, one, there will be litter bins everywhere around you. Two, there's a structure that makes sure that if you differ from using those things, you'll be arrested and you'll be reprimanded. So naturally, human being will conform. The same human being that is on the street of Lagos that will break the red lights and nothing happens. He knows if he has to do the same thing like that in a country that is well managed, his bill will get to his house before he gets to the house. Because the red lights, and if you break it, the camera will pick you, and you cannot go free. You'll be punished, you'll be sanctioned, and you may even lose your license. You may not be able to drive again, and that will count against you. So the system, the society there puts a structure in place to guide your function. And I think that's exactly what we should do. So it's not about the people.
Okay.
It's about the lack
right.
of the structure on governance.
Yes, I think at this point, you talked about turning waste to wealth. My own question, because do you really think that people are aware that their waste can be turned to waste? There's still a lot of sensitization and advocacy lacking, as far as I'm concerned. As much as you have done quite a lot. But we chatted with a young lady, she's a lady, Kenya, I think, Esther. She's doing what you are talking to us now, turning a lot of waste materials into other reusable things. Let's have a chat with her. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Young Entrepreneur segment on to Magnate, and as usual, we have a very, very interesting young entrepreneur, someone who is changing the narrative of business in the country. She's making waste, I call it waste, she's making a waste bin, something that is so insignificant, making it worthy and making it art. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
So what's your name, ma'am?
Esther Odanga.
So what's your project? I see they're making tires, I see wood.
Yes.
What is it all about?
So with this, what I had in mind is we have a lot of waste in Lagos, and there are a lot of people. And it's not like we are making a lot of use for the waste that we are dumping every single day. So as part of that reduction, I'm so much interested in recycling. I do interior design. I'm also a gardener, let me say so. So I use some of these tires to plant flowers, yes, to make planters out of it. So with this, I'm making a table. So it's a functional table, that's why we have wood. You can make use of glass, tempered glass if you need it strong. And we can also use canvas for aesthetic purposes. So with the canvas, we don't need it to carry anything, or nobody can sit on it. Just for aesthetic purposes, probably the corner, or you can have it as a center around, maybe beside your coffee table. You can even have it by your bedside or anything for aesthetic purposes.
What year did you start making art?
I would say 2013.
Okay.
2013. As part of recycling, we are also trying to look at how a budding entrepreneur can make use of less capital to make something out of it. So sometimes you could do artwork, you could use 50,000 and not make much out of it because there's not much process and all that involved in it. But anyway, you could still multiply that. You can as well use 10,000 naira or less, depending on how you go about gathering your materials. But since this is already waste, it's something you have to invest in time and being very, very observant. That makes you a great a creative artist if you're very, very observant and you know how to get inspirations from the least of the places, yes. So humble yourself, get out into the sun, get dirty, and make something out of it.
Welcome back. I still have with us Mr. Ola Oresanya, very well-renowned then GM of Loma, later consultant to Loma. Now he's the managing consultant or environmental consultant of Globetech Remedial Nig Limited. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Do you think that human beings, Lagosians, Nigerians, are such a complex people to govern? Because I remember the effort you made providing these bins. What was the compliance rate from your own assessment?
Yeah, the compliance was improving.
Okay.
Okay, let me just give you an instance. When I took up the waste management job then in 2005, when I was appointed, and I sat down with my wife in a car and I said, look, my vision is this. We were driving from my 12 in Lagos and going towards Surulere and Stadium. So at K2 then, half of the road by the verges were filled up with a pure water sachet. The road was covered with sand and weeds were growing by the verges of the road. And I told her then that I said, look, my vision is that it's what I can see in my brain. There will be a day that from my 12 to CMS a bus stop, I must be able to count the number of pure water
Sachet.
sachet I will see on the road. And she looked at me and said, is that possible? She said, it's not possible. Because as at that time, people were using pure water to wash their feet, to drink, and they throw. And half of Lagos road then were filled up with pure water sachet. And if you can visualize it, you can achieve it. And eventually, by the time I left, I resigned. I retired 2015. There was a day I told my wife, I said, look, let us start counting. He said, really? I said, yes. I can recall that I said this sometimes. And honestly, between my 12 and that day we got to Randy Jora before we went to Papa that day, I could gladly I could count maybe we did more than 2 on the road then. So it's not about Lagosian. It's about the government, it's about policy.
Structures.
It's about structures. If you want to get it done, it can be done.
Okay.
We're not difficult people. The situation makes us to be very difficult.
Interesting. Let's look at the other side of it now. There are some flashpoints. Let's use Lagos as a case study on the blueprint of Lagos State managing waste. I remember I was at a session with you where the issue of Olushosu came up. A few months ago, it was taken over. It has been released again. But that stench is still there, irrespective of who is in government or not. Can we really do something? Because when we started, we talked about the environmental pollution.
Yeah.
And people live there, they trade there, they do business there. What's your take?
Olushosu history and the story about the place, I can give a bit about it. In 1986, when the World Bank was going to give Lagos State government loan of about $65 million to improve on the waste management services, one of the key things then was that to find an area suitable for landfill site.
Okay.
And we did the landfill site selection studies then. It was carried out by a company called Lavalin from Quebec in Toronto, in Canada. And Olushosu was selected as a suitable site because at that time, in 1986, talking about 33 years ago now, we didn't have too many people living around the place. it was a borrowed pit. It was an abandoned mine that was used to construct the Lagos-Ibadan Express Road.
Good.
And as at that time, from all the candidate sites, Olushosu was the most suitable.
Preferred.
It was the most preferred. And we had about almost about 42 hectares of land. And the site was designed in such a way that 250 meters around the site, nobody should build any house there. And that was how the contract was signed to develop the site. Now, we know better. 1992, still the project was not completed. The World Bank pulled off because of the incursion of the military again in Nigeria at that time. And during the Abacha regime, almost every multilateral, bilateral agreements with Nigeria was cancelled. And Olushosu suffered his own beats too. But we started using the site before completing the project. Now, apart from that, all the buffer regions were encroached upon. People started getting approval to build houses, even on the site, within the 42 hectares of land. People started building areas where we've not really started dumping refuse. People were building right inside. They were encroaching on it. So, cut the long story short, urbanization came in and choked the site into what it is right now. And but I can tell you that the site is rounding up. The lifespan was designed for 30 years. We started operation on Friday, November 19, 1992. And it was designed for 30 years. So 2022, that's when the site should be closed. Now, what are the mitigation plans? Yes, during the Fashola regime. On that same site, we did a lot of retrofitting. We brought in air cleaners and everything like that. We were fumigating the community. And yeah, there were palliative programs to mitigate the excessive risk at that time. And that actually doused the pressure, the stench, and the rest of. So we were doing the aeration. And by the time even the World Bank came, they were very happy that we were able to do so much. And we had a company from Paris called AB Carbon in Paris that did due diligence on the site. And the site was classified as a CDM project, registered under United Nations Fund for Climate Change. And we're supposed to be recovering the methane and converting it into electricity, and that agreement was signed. All right. But unfortunately, after we left, the 2015 experiment turned the thing round, and nobody could follow through what was on ground, and there was the policy of assault led to the problem we are having now. So, but that's just taking it from historical perspective to see the evolution of the site.
I really appreciate the history you have given us, but then you took it from a lack of continuity, because if you say that structures have to be put on ground, and there was a story behind the site, how come there was approval for people to build there? Well, you may answer, you may not, but that's something that, because it definitely has a lot of environmental hazards, human. If you live there, if the initial arrangement or plan was that people should not live close to the place, and you now have people living in there, I mean, what's the health implication of that?
Well, the first thing, why approval? Yeah, executive rascality. Because executives, yes, I think there could be some rascals that will just be determined to just say, okay, look, I have the powers, and but even despite your powers, nature has a way
of revolting.
Yes, even if you approve it, you have all the powers. By nature, you never enjoy it, you know. So you have to flow with the tide, and not just trying to run against the tide.
Government is a continuum.
Government is a continuum. So I think that's exactly what happened.
Okay. The program is the Magnates, and we're still chatting with the environmental consultant himself. The conversation is getting quite stimulating. Let's go for a short break. We'll be back to continue the interactive session. You're welcome back. It's still the Magnates, and we are chatting with the environmental consultant himself that has really added value locally and internationally. We have with us as a Magnate for the week, Mr. Ola Oresanya. Thank you very much for still joining us.
Thank you.
You know, there's this slogan when you talk of MDG, developmental goals, sustainable development goals. While I was reading your profile and a lot about you, I had 2030. What has waste management got to do with sustainable development? Is it by 2030 we won't have any refuse in our environment, or we will convert virtually all refuse to wealth?
Well, yeah, the benchmark for 2030 is that by that time we're supposed to have evolved the strategy that will ensure that we live in a more sustainable manner. Like I told you, if you cannot handle your waste properly, you're not living sustainably.